All right, Judd. I'm only going to talk for about 10 or 15 minutes, but I wanted to show you something really quick in here on auto layout, kind of a down and dirty little way that if you've got a very simple interface, you can incorporate auto layout. I'm in the middle at home. I'm doing a lecture where I'm building a project for you, and I'm trying to put all the stuff in there, but it's kind of gotten out of control, and I've had to redo it twice. All right, but I hope to finish it up tomorrow, and then I'll throw it out there on the system. But what I want to show you is this. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to suppose, if you look on the board right here, I'm just going to build a really unbelievably simple interface. So I'm going to have a title up here. It's going to be a label, and it'll say like temp converter. So pretending, again, I'm making a temperature converter. All right. Then over here, I'm going to have an edit text. That's where I can put in my temperature. All right. Underneath that, I'm going to have I'll have a button that says convert. And under that, I'll have a label where I'll put the answer. Does that make sense? All right. I'm not going to worry about what I'm converting to or whatever. I just am trying to show you a simple interface. Notice there's only one thing per line. So this little trick that I'm going to show you, it works best when you're doing it that way. So it works best for a very simple interface. I will tell you that just like with the other class, the other day I put a bunch of articles out there on auto layout that were in the P drive. I put some more out there today, and kind of what I'm basing mine off of is one of those articles that's out there. So I've got someplace in here I have, all right, at least I had it going. I don't know if I stopped running Xcode, but I must have turned it off. So let me start it up again. All right, so I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to start up a new project. All right, and because a couple of you have asked about this, if you look up on the screen here, next week we're going to go through as much as we can from about chapters 25 to 40. And that may not sound like a lot, but it is, because what it does basically is it shows you how to build most of the other things that are up here. All right, so we're going to do that, and one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to build a simple interface that has more than one view controller, so we can jump back and forth. All right, but if you look on here now, so I'm just for now I'm going to do a single view. I'm going to do next, and I'll just call this temperature. All right, it's Swift. I don't care whether it's iPhone or not. That's not really that big a thing, but I'm going to just keep it at iPhone. Put it on the desktop and say create. All right, and come up here, have my main storyboard up here. I don't need really what's in here right now, but I will bring this back later. Same with this. I don't need it, but I'll bring it back later, and there'll be a reason for that. I want to show you that. All right. So right now, there's my interface, and as you can see, there's nothing in it. I'm going to immediately bring up the assistant editor. You'll see why in just a minute, okay? But I immediately brought up that assistant editor. And what I'm going to do first, again, I'm going to make this interface that's on the board. So I'm going to come down here to my object library that's down here, and I'm going to type in label. There's my label. I'm going to drag it up here. All right, in fact, I'll try to center it. Whoops, I'll try to center it as best I can. So I'll put it up here. There's that. Where's that plus sign? Where is it? There it is. All right, I'm going to double click on it, and I'll just call it what it is, temperature converter. All right, I'll move it back over, and I'll see again if I can line it up at least somewhat. So it looks pretty good right there. I think you'd agree with that. I'm not worried about how big the font is. I can always change that stuff later. That's not really important. All right, so underneath that, we said we were going to put in basically an edit text, text view, whatever, text field, I guess it is. So we're going to put one of those in. So I'm going to put that right underneath, okay? Just throw it in there someplace, that's fine. And then underneath that, we want a button. Okay, and again, I guess that looks pretty good the way it is, all right? And underneath that, we're going to put in another label. this is pretty much reminiscent of the kind of interfaces that you've been building in here so far. Pretty simplistic. All right, so you can see pretty much everything lines up. And I'm going to keep like the word label in there just so you can see it. In fact, I'm going to come in here for this because otherwise you won't be able to see it. And I'm going to type in here just test. All right, notice it's left justified. I want it center justified. And I want also my label text to be center justified. Okay, and on the button, we'll put the word convert in there. All right, and again, we'll make sure that it's pretty much lined up. All right, now you might look at that and say, well, it's not bad, it's pretty much lined up. It may or it may not be. And one thing, and this is on me for not having shown you that before, but if you look over here, you know this is your main.storyboard, and this file that's over here is the actual viewcontroller.swift file. But what you may or may not have ever done, and what we're going to do right now, is we're going to click the word automatic. And then we're going to go down to view. All right, so I'm going to click the word automatic on here. And I'm going to go down to where it says not view, preview, and main storyboard. Now, what it's showing me right here, and let me close some stuff because otherwise you won't be able to see all of it. But what it's showing me right there is what it's going to look like right now. And as you can see, that's not very good. And if I want to see how it'll look in portrait, I'm sorry, landscape mode, if I go down to the bottom here, way down to the bottom, come on. All right, I can go back and forth between it. Now, it actually doesn't look bad right now in landscape mode, but I want it to look good in both modes. All right, so I'm going to fix these. I thought I'm just going to go through the whole thing, and if you have problems when we get done, you don't have to turn this in. All right, but I just want to go through the whole thing so people can see it just going through everything. So I'm going to click on the title to begin with. I'm going to click right there on the title. All right, and after I click on the title, again, the things that are involved with auto layout are these four things down here. We looked a little bit at the pin last time. We're going to look at these two right now. And then when you work with size classes, which was what was in chapter 24, that's these. That's that WNE and HNE. All right? And there, maybe I mentioned this to you last semester. I don't remember if I did or not. I've looked at pretty much a full series of a guy on YouTube. It's called Code with Chris. And what he does is he goes through a bunch of this stuff, but he builds the game War. I think I told you about this last semester. And what he does is he starts setting up his interface. Okay? And what he does is he comes over here, and that's going to be the first card. And he sets it up so it looks good right there. It pretty much looks where the way he wants it to look. And then he turns it landscape, but the problem is what he wants is he wants the two cards to pretty much be in the middle. Doesn't that make sense if you're playing a game of War? And the way he sets it up, they're not. They're an equal distance apart, but they're pretty much on each side of the screen. And the way he fixes that is he goes into these size classes here. All right, so I'm not going to talk about that right now, but what I want to show you is this. So with this highlighted right here, I'm going to go over to the third one over, all right, the third one right up above on mine. That's the pin menu right there. So I'm going to go up to the pin, and you can see what comes up, okay? Now, what this means is right now, the way that this is set up, the way it's set up right now, is this is basically about 8 pixels from the top, 191 pixels from the left, 190 pixels from the right. So you can see it pretty much is in the middle. And it's about 23 from whatever's next, its nearest neighbor. Now, I don't care about any of this stuff, but I care about this. Just this one right here. So I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to click just on that first one. And you'll notice that when I do, it turns red. It's added a constraint right now to what I'm working on. All right? The other thing I want to do is I want to basically pin these two because I want to make sure that it stays this height and this width. So these two, I'm going to check both these boxes. And when I do that, it's going to now say add 3 constraints. So I'm going to add those. I'm clicking the button. Then I'm going to come over and click the one next to it. Not the pin one right there, but the one next to it. And when I click that one,
it's going to come up like this, and I want to click the box here that says horizontally in container and add one constraint. You see how stuff has kind of jumped around a little bit? All right, it's better now. So if I take a look at what's there, okay, and now if I go backwards, notice my temperature converter, it is centered right now. So I'm going to do the same thing to each one of these. I'm going to click on test, the thing that says test. I'm going to go over here to the pin menu. And now this 23, this isn't 23 pixels from the top. This is 23 pixels from the thing that's above it. All right, so I'm going to click on that again and choose width and choose height. Add my 3 constraints, go over to the one next to the pin, and horizontally center it in the container and add that constraint. Now, do you see how test jumped over? All right. And then I'm going to do the next one. So here's my button. Click it. Click on the pin. 20. Width, height. Add those 3 constraints. Click the one that, now you notice right now, you notice how those are orange? What it's telling me is right now I've got something that's in conflict. All right, I haven't finished yet, but it's letting me know there's something in conflict. And if you say, well, I don't see anything in conflict, if I bring back again this, you see how I got a little red spot up there? I can click that red spot and it'll show me what's in conflict. All right, so if I click that, it's telling me there's a missing constraint in there right now. And it's because I haven't horizontally set it up in the container. And you'll notice, so I'm going to have this go back away just so you can see what's happening here, that when I click this again and come over to here and select horizontally in container and click add one constraint, now when I go back to this, come on, it's not red anymore. All right? So now I've got 3 things here, and all 3 of these, they look good right here. All right? And you can see, there's the, and so finally I go back to my label here. Again, click the pin. Again, just the first one, the width, the height, adding the 3 constraints, the one next to the pin, horizontally center it in the container, and add 1 constraint. All right? Not sure why that's orange. It shouldn't be. The point is, when you were looking at this right now, it actually looks pretty good. And when I flipped it over, now it's, before it was portrait, now it's landscape. Hopefully you agree, there and right there, that's what it looks like in here. So what I've done now with a very simple interface is using auto layout constraints, it now looks pretty nice in both portrait and landscape. There's more to it when you start adding other components in there, but I wanted to show you something simple so you could at least get started with it. Yes?
You do the top constraint, the first one?
Yes.
It's the pixels from the thing above it always?
No, the top one here, that's the pixels from the top.
Yeah, and then the one below it.
And everything else, this is how many from here, this is how many from here, and that's how many from there.
What if you have a view or control away from those? Would it still count towards the one above the control above it? Or
What I'm showing you right now only works like this with a really simple interface. All right, the one that I'm trying to show you that I'm doing a tape of, all right, because it just gets so complex when you start doing and adding more and more stuff in here, and you've got to work with other stuff that's in here. But for right now, I just wanted to keep it simple. So you come in here to the third one over, your pin menu, you click on there, all right, and then you get the things that looks like this, you know, and there's a little box by each one of these. It's something like that. I don't know exactly what it looks like. This is, maybe it's down here and up here, and then here and here. But the point is, when you're doing this, this is the one you want to set. And if you set that one, all right, and you set the width and the height on here, and then you go over to here, and you just horizontally center it in the container, that will, on a very simple interface like this, that will line everything up. All right? Does it make sense, at least what's going on? Now, the other thing, just so you see this, and we're not going to go over this right now, but these size classes. Notice with this WNE and this HNE, if I click on these, see what I get? This is trying to show me, as I move around in here, the WNE and the HNE mean right now, this is the way it's going to be set for any width and for any height. That's exactly what it means. But if I want it special, let's say for an iPad, I want it to look different for an iPad than anything else. Then one of these that's in here is set up for an iPad. So I can drag this around, and you'll notice when I do, the size and the dimensions on this will change. So when you use the size classes, that's basically set up so that it's not generic in nature. You want it to, you could at least want it to potentially look different in different orientations, and or you'd want it to look different in different types of devices. Does that make sense? All right. The book doesn't get into it in much detail, but this one, like I said, they give you 2 chapters, but they never show you. They never say, hey, just do this. This is an easy way to do it with a simple interface. That's what I wanted to show you. All right. So just keep working on this stuff, and like I said, when you look in the book, I'm not going to bring it up on here right now, but the stuff that we'll cover next time, starting in chapter 25, right away that's storyboards. And you go, well, we know storyboards, but it's using multiple storyboard files. So that's chapters 25 and 26, and then in chapter 27, they go into a tab bar application. Then in chapters 28 and 29, they go into table views, 28, 29, and 30. Then they go into a stack view for 3 chapters. Then they go into a master detail for a few chapters. So what you're going to get thrown at you, and I'm going to, every one of these apps that we build next week, they're going to be real simple. Because the idea is over 2 class periods, I'd like to not only explain all those, but demo those to you. All right? The same kind of way that we're going to be doing it in the Android. Fortunately or unfortunately, Android's got about 50 less chapters. I'm going to have to start going through this book because there's no way we're going to get through 108 chapters. But I'd like to show you some of the stuff that I think is important. Being able to build each one of these apps, important. Chapter, I think it's 49 in this book, is on using databases in here. That's important. I think when we get around to chapter 70, that starts talking about sprites. We might build a game, but it'll be a simple game. All right? And I have no idea. I say, well, will that be that one that you did for the JavaScript? I don't know what it'll be because we haven't built it yet. But it'll be a simple one. And there's audio and there's video in here. I'd like to at least do a program where we have audio and video introduced to you. I guarantee you that after the break, at least 1 period a week, and most times 2, you're going to have to work on your projects. All right? And Ben asked me, I don't think he was here the other day, but he asked me about those projects. Again, it's my responsibility. During the break, I have to write up what your assignments are going to be. It's going to be more similar to the way that we set it up for the project in the Bootstrap class. In other words, you'll have dates when things are due. The only way this is going to work is if you stick to those dates. All right, and again, you'll have at least 2 hours a week to work on these, and most weeks 4 hours a week. All right, and I mean, a couple of you have asked, and with very few exceptions, if any at all, you know, I realize it's tough. Well, geez, I go home and I don't have a Mac at home. I get that. That's why I'm not expecting these programs to be, let's solve world hunger, the ones that you do on your own. All right, but if you want to go and build a fairly simplistic game, or you've got something that you're interested in doing, and remember, I'm here every morning at 6, Monday through Thursday, and I leave at 5. All right, I'm in this room from 6 to 7. I go upstairs because I'm doing what I can to try to lose some of this gut from 6 to 7, but then I'm down here again at 8 o'clock, and I'm here till 5. If I'm not here, either Mike's here or John's here, and we can make sure that that is open all the time. All right, you're welcome to come in here. My classes on Tuesdays and on Mondays and Wednesdays rather. There's no one in here 8 to 10 Monday through Friday. No one. All right, you know your schedule on Tuesdays, Thursdays, but Mondays I've got a 10 to 12 in here, and I've got a 3 to 5.
So Mondays and Wednesdays, there's never anyone in here at 1 o'clock. So if you ever wanted to come in, you're welcome to. My 10 o'clock class has 18. I don't believe more than 15 have ever come at one time. All right. So for that reason, that means there's somewhere between 5 and 10 seats available. Same thing with the afternoon class, the 3 to 5. There's 17 in there. Typically about 12 to 13 show. So you've got half the lab. You're welcome to come in here and work at any time. All right. And John is the lab assistant for me for Tuesdays and Thursdays all afternoon. So if it's not open, he's got the key. Any questions on any of that stuff? All right, again, that was just meant to get you started on this.